This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission.
Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Hey guys, it's David Barron. I'm here with you with another video. Democracy has prevailed, the government of the dragon. You definitely want to watch this through. Joe Biden was recently elected as the president of the United States. And Karl Marx tells us this: democracy is the road to socialism, and socialism leads to communism. He was a communist, and he wrote the book called The Communist Manifesto. Joe Biden was sworn in as president, and he said, democracy has prevailed. And this was the headline of every single newspaper in the world right now. You'll notice democracy has prevailed in his stirring inaugural address. That was Vanity Fair. Democracy Now! Says democracy has prevailed. Joe Biden sworn in as president. The Guardian says democracy has prevailed. The front pages across the world hailed Joe Biden's inauguration. Democracy leads to socialism, and socialism to communism, as Karl Marx said. And I want you just to notice from a group that many of you have followed. It's called Black Lives Matter. Maybe not in a good way, hopefully in a good way, but these people tell us that they are trained Marxists. That means they are basically people who were leading us to communism. Now listen.
I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
Super versed in the ideological theories of Marxism. So since democracy has prevailed and democracy leads to socialism and socialism leads to communism, as Karl Marx said, where is America heading right now? That's what we need to understand. What is communism? Isn't communism a bad thing? And that's what we're being led into right now. Karl Marx had a disciple named Vladimir Lenin, and he said this. He said the surest way to destroy a nation is to debauch its currency. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Especially when we look at the recent balance sheet trends in the United States. You'll notice if you look over on the left side, you can kind of see what happened in 2008. Over here on the right side, you'll see 2020. This is basically what is leading us into a Great Depression. And you'll notice a picture here of the Great Depression, and what happened to the balance sheets back there was the same thing that led us into the Great Depression. And you can kind of see 2008 here almost comparing to the Great Depression, but 2020 shall be even greater. The United States is about to have a giant fall. And you'll notice here, small businesses are dying by the thousands, and no one is tracking the carnage because, as Karl Marx said, democracy is the road to socialism, and socialism leads to communism. And this is none other than the spirit of that old dragon, that old serpent mentioned in Revelation 12:9, who deceives the whole world. And that's what we see taking place here, is the whole world has been deceived. Even Joe Biden, many say, is riding the dragon. Joe Biden has some very communist beliefs and understandings. Now, Karl Marx tells us that the communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at the communist revolution. He further went on to say that communism abolishes eternal truths. It abolishes all religion and all morality. In other words, you won't have an eternal truth. There is no eternity, a godless society. It abolishes all religion. And that's what we have in America right now. But some of Karl Marx's friends said Karl Marx is a monster possessed by 10,000 devils. Another friend said Karl Marx had the devil's view of the world and the devil's malignity. Sometimes he seemed to know that he was accomplishing the works of evil. He also said, heaven have I forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell. In other words, he sold his soul to the devil. And that was Karl Marx. the founder of the Communist Manifesto. And he tells us very clearly that his one objective in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. In other words, to bring in socialism through democracy so that socialism would bring communism. And communism to America is something that's coming, as most of the people that are Democrats are following this communist agenda. People behind Black Lives Matter have no idea that they are all following Marxists who believe that democracy leads to socialism and socialism leads to communism. And many are thanking God that democracy has been saved in America, but they have no idea what democracy is. Ron Paul once said, "Our country's founders cherished liberty, not democracy." Let's take a look at what some of these founders believed, such as Thomas Jefferson, who said, "A democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49. And that's especially not good when you have voting machines that can miscalculate the votes to take away the rights of the other 49. And that's what's happening in America. But there's more. John Adams, another president of the United States, said, "Democracy, while it lasts, is more bloody than either aristocracy or monarchy. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There is never a democracy that did not commit suicide." Isn't that interesting that he said democracy is worse than even aristocracy or monarchy? He'd rather have a king than a democracy. In other words, these men were willing to go back under the rule of a king such as King George of England, who they declared independence from, rather than have a democracy. But furthermore, Benjamin Franklin said a democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. America was not a democracy. America is a constitutional republic. And a republic has a rule of law in which voters can never take away the rights of the other people. But now, under a pandemic, we've apparently given away our rights, and now we're going to be ruled by the mob. You need your vaccination, or you need your masks, or you need whatever rules that they're going to make because they're crazy, hysterical, and afraid. And when people are in fear, they do stupid things. And that's exactly where America and the world is right now today. James Madison, another president of the United States, also said democracies have in general been short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. In other words, what we're going to see is a lot of violence coming through this democracy that Joe Biden says has prevailed. The first move that Joe Biden made when he was elected the president was to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, and that was to tackle global warming apparently. But I think there's a little bit more to it, because we're told that Biden killed the Keystone pipelines that come from Canada to the United States, but he's promoting pipelines that the Taliban are making. Hypocrisy, complete hypocrisy. God have mercy on their soul. We know that the Pope is pondering a universal basic income as the world's economy withers, and this is what we're waiting for, is, as Revelation 13:17 says, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And they want a universal income. Why is the papacy fighting for universal income, and why are the United Nations giving control? The papacy tells us Sunday is our mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. The papacy has changed God's times and laws according to Daniel 7 verse 25. What we're told regarding the Biden administration is that their climate agenda reflects Laudato Si, the spirit of Laudato Si. And in Laudato Si, if you read it carefully, the Pope recommends Sunday keeping as part of a global solution to heal our planet. 237, it says Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationships with God, with ourselves and with others and with the world. Sunday is the day of the resurrection, the first day of the new creation. So we're told that there's a mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is Sunday, and that no man is going to be able to buy or sell soon. That's what the Bible tells us. But in 2015, Pope Francis headlined when he came to the United States of America. The Paris Climate Accord was signed at that time. If you'll notice this little map right here of the United States, basically what they've done is they've mapped out the United States, and what they want to do is move people out of all the red and yellow zones, because as it says right on the map, this is a United Nations map, a foreign government of the United States, and they want to make the rules in the United States. They don't want to have a constitutional republic anymore, but they want to have a dictatorship. That's what Joe Biden is giving the United States to, is the United Nations. He's entered into the climate agenda again, which is the Sustainable Development Agenda. And this is a map from the 1990s, so this has been planned for a very long time. COVID-19 was really the way in which they could move towards this agenda. Now you'll notice here on this map, they want people locked into the cities. The Bible says, come out of her, my people. We should be far from the cities. Come out of Babylon. Come out of Babel, like Abraham when he left Babel, right? We got to read our Bibles. We'll start to see this message is clear. Regarding Joe Biden, well, his son Hunter has been offered $10 million annually by Chinese energy firms just for introductions alone, and he has a lot of connections to Chinese companies. China is actually the peacekeeping force of the United Nations. If you go to the United Nations peacekeeping page and they tell you, thank you, China. China is the one that they want to move around the world, the forces, the armies that they want around the world, China. And the model for the world on how to handle this virus is the Chinese model, which includes lockdowns and control from government that take away your rights. And so that's what we see here coming soon to the United Nations, Chinese leadership and authoritarian values. As Washington steps back, Beijing will take charge. And a lot of people don't understand this right now, but that's exactly what's happened in the world right now. The Guardian tells us that China has started to assert its worldview at UN as influence grows. President Biden, we're told by Steve Bannon, who has seen the content on Hunter Biden's laptop, says Joe Biden is a liar, a fraud, and compromised by Chinese cash. In short, he is a national security crisis. The hard drive combines emails and text messages that show a massive involvement with companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So China is really leading out in the UN, and Joe Biden has just entered into the United Nations again. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Especially when we consider the Chinese symbol, which is the dragon. Communism is a symbol of the dragon's government. It is the dragon who influenced Karl Marx. It is the dragon who influenced Vladimir Lenin. It is the dragon who influences democracy, which leads to socialism, which leads to communism, as Karl Marx so plainly put it. And the papacy tells us that China is a model of the common good, if you read carefully what they believe. And during the Dark Ages, the papacy had no different a model of control than they have in current China today. And that would include barbaric torture, brainwashing, and forced organ removals inside of China's brutal death camps. And this is no different than what happened during the Dark Ages by the Roman papacy. It is the same thing. And in this page here, 19 shocking statistics of democide. Democide means people who were murdered by their government. It tells us that from 1900 to 1987, almost 50% of China's population was killed by their government. That's the government that is the model of the UN, and that's the government that is the model of the common good of the papacy, the Chinese government that kills all its people. In the New York Times, we read that Pope urges forming a new world economic order to work for the common good. And what is this economic order and this common good that they are working towards? What kind of world economic order is it? It is called the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum. And they are telling us that they are getting us ready for a reset of the economy. The economy has been basically destroyed. And remember in your Bible you were told that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the number or the name of the beast? Well, the number is 666, many of you know. And some of you may have heard this saying called build back better. It's 3 6 a symbol, and you'll see it even more here in this video. I want you to hear about how all world leaders are pushing to build back better.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, Britain After Coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better. Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
You'll notice the last person mentioned on this was Klaus Schwab, who talks about building back better has to do with the Great Reset. And he was born in Nazi Germany around the time of Hitler. Klaus Schwab says the Great Reset will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity. But furthermore, he tells us that we're going to own nothing and have no privacy, and life has never been better. They've built back better and they're going to own nothing. Basically, they own everything, they control everything, and that's what this is all about. It is a giant control grab, but furthermore, of course, the vaccinations are poison and they're depopulating people through this vaccination agenda. But let me remind you of a few things that have happened over the last few years. On January 1st of 2016, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development adopted by world leaders in September 2015 at a historic UN summit officially came into force, they tell us. Many of you know what happened with Trump and how Trump exited the Paris Accord, which is called the Sustainable Development Agenda, but now Biden has re-entered into it. And what happened in 2015, it was called this whirlwind visit of the Pope. And you read about this whirlwind visit in Daniel chapter 11:40, where he goes to gather chariots, horsemen, ships. And that's what we read here in Daniel 11:40, where it says, "At the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over." So he's going to control basically most of the world, and he's going to use chariots, horsemen, ships, basically armies, the armies of the world, which is the United Nations. And as it says in Daniel 11:43, he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. That's what we're told in Revelation 13. He's going to have the control of the economy. It's called the economy of Francisco. And that's what we're seeing take place when the United Nations were giving control to the papacy. This was what we call the healing of the deadly wound. He's getting his power back over the state, and it's a church and state union. And just like the Dark Ages, so today, the woman in Revelation 17 rides the dragon, the beast, and the dragon has many governments, and most of it is dragon-like communism, like China. And that's exactly what we're seeing take place in Revelation 17. And the United Nations has already been split up into 10 parts, as we can see in this Millennium Development Goals map of 2009. So we have the 10 parts, the 10 divisions, and this 10 divisions is mentioned in the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 17, referring to the 10 horns, which are 10 kings. And this agenda, the Sustainable Development Agenda, has been called Agenda 21, as some of you may have heard before. And it is an agenda to control all of the countrysides and move you into cities. As it says right on the bottom of the text on the top of the map there, attaining sustainable development map. That's what we're told in Times of Malta, that a digital economy is for the common good of all. According to them, for the common good, that we will be happy, we will own nothing. Thousands of Swedish people are swapping ID cards for microchips, we're told on the World Economic Forum. So people are excited to move into a lot of this stuff, and they're moving quickly. In 66 AD, we were told of a sign that was given before the destruction of Jerusalem. They had 3.5 years of time to get out of the city. And very similar, we've been given time. In 2015, when the papacy came to America, the Vatican flag was raised at the United Nations as a power, a diverse power, a different power, a religious power, the woman riding the beast in Revelation chapter 17. You see this on the European coins and stuff like that. It's a symbol of the papacy riding the state power. And Jesus told us about this when he talked about the sign of the end. He likens it to what happened in 70 AD with Jerusalem being burnt with fire. So today we're about to watch the world. Now what we're told now with regards to the Pope and the United Nations is there's an appeal. And this appeal is for the environment and religious tolerance. What kind of religious tolerance are they looking for in this appeal? Because they're forcing a lot of things on God's people right now. They're moving towards a one world government. And God's people are not really prepared for a lot of things that are about to come to pass. And they're about to come to pass very shortly. They're already coming to pass. We're watching it take place before our eyes. The economy is being swept out from under us. And soon what we're going to do is we're going to have no choice but to follow their rules, or we will not be able to buy or sell, as the Bible told us about. So we must prepare spiritually. And so I want to close with a couple things here. Just a couple things that I want you guys to take notice of. We do our Bible studies Tuesday night at 7:30 and ours also on Saturday at 12 p.m. You can also sign up on my website, thethirdangelsmessage.com, to get email updates on all these things. Also, if you're seeing this on YouTube right now, you need to move off of YouTube and start to go to Rumble or BitChute or library.com. I will give you all the links to my pages on those pages, and if you do go on those pages, please be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment, help these videos to get out there by sharing them as well. Put some comments, create community on there. Let's get off of YouTube and Facebook, because what they are doing is they are part of the problem. They are censoring God's people from being able to produce truth. I had one of my videos censored, which was the Twitter unclean birds, which I'll also leave a link to under this video as well. You definitely need to see that to understand more of the depopulation program and what they're moving towards right now. And so we will see you in the next video. Be sure to join our Bible studies for much more, because this is where we get the spiritual food and the manna that we're going to need in order to endure the times that are coming. So thank you for joining. Again, we'll see you next time. God bless you. Like, share, subscribe, and go to those other websites. See you next time.